recording.
Okay, good evening. I would like to call to order the Park and Recreation Commission meeting of October 26, 2020. This open meeting of the Park and Recreation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. For this meeting, the Park and Recreation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. All supporting materials that have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. Please note each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And with that, I would like to call this meeting officially to order. And let's see, welcome everyone. Our first item under public comment is Needham baseball and softball. And I believe is it Kevin Lavelle that is here? Lavelle, I'm sorry, Kevin Lavelle, who would like to speak with us about a proposal.
I'm going to promote Kevin over to a panelist so he can talk with us.
Okay. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. So welcome.
Hey, Kevin.
I am Cindy Chaston. I am the chair. I believe you know Chris. I don't know if you know Matt Tulin and Michelle Geddes. They are the two other parking records. And you may know Stacy Mulray, our director, and Kristen Wright, our administrative specialist. I think
Yes.
that right. Thank you. So welcome.
Okay, nice to meet you all.
Yes. What can we do for you?
Thanks. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. I've been on the board of Needham Baseball for about 7 years, grew up in the town and played baseball, and coached my daughter through softball. And so the reason I'm here tonight is our board would like to help the town with some of the resources we have financially, as well as working closely with Ed. Ed's been to our board meetings in the past, and I spoke to him recently because what we'd like to do is give the town a gift in the form of financial support to maintain some of the smaller diamonds in town, as well as in collaboration with Ed, work on a upgraded maintenance program to help him and his crew maintain some of these smaller diamonds to, I think the overall goal is to make these Little League fields look as best as they can be and give the kids a better experience in town, both on the baseball and softball side. So that's the kind of the main reason I'm here tonight. I just wanted to talk a little bit more detail about that. Does anyone have any questions there so far?
No, but with that, I would welcome Ed Olsen, who has joined our meeting. So welcome, Ed. Please feel free to chime in whenever you want, or raise your hand or call on you. We're pretty informal, you know us.
Okay, great. Hi, Ed. So
Hi.
as I said last week, I spoke to Ed, and our board recently set up a committee that I led. And the first thing we thought about is, okay, how can we help the town better maintain some of our fields? So what we thought is we'd split up into pairs and go out and do an assessment of all the diamonds in town. There are 25 baseball diamonds or softball diamonds in the town. And I'm sure you probably know that, but we looked at each one and said, hey, what are the major needs here from a structural standpoint? What are the conditions of the bases, the infield, the soil, and some of these things? And we tried to document it all for all the fields. And so we shared that with Ed recently, and I had a conversation with him about that. I also shared a presentation, a short slide that I'd like to turn to page 3 of that and just go over some of the things that, in talking with Ed, some of the things that we'd like to do as, what I understand would be a gift to the town. So one of the critical needs that we identified was the small diamond at Small Field at the DeFazio complex. The infield is really unlevel. We're worried about kids getting hurt with balls bouncing up unexpectedly into their face or something that, they can't do anything about. So what our proposal to you as a commission is that we would hire a third-party contractor to level the infield, replace it with the right sod, the right soil mix, the bases, and actually do sod all around the infield for the cost of around $10,000, just under $10,000. I think we've gone out and got 3 different bids from very reputable turf specialists in this area. I know Ed knows a couple of them. And we feel pretty good about the pricing there and the quality of the work that could be done. And certainly Ed would be there to supervise it as well. The second thing we'd like to do is also upgrade the infield and cut the lines in the soil at Avery Field, which is, where it is. It's off where the old Avery School used to be. And the cost there would be around $8,000 in terms of the pricing that we got to really improve the quality of the diamond there. And the last thing we would propose is we would spend just under $10,000 to upgrade the batting cage at Mills Field and extend the cage to 2 lanes. One of the challenges we have in town with 1 lane is that, we're all volunteers and coaches. We show up to the diamond and everyone wants to get in the cage and get on the field. Well, that's hard to do for 2 teams in a half hour to 45 minutes. So if you look at some of the other small diamonds in town or some of the towns that have complexes, they all have a batting cage with 2 lanes in it. So what we'd like to do with your approval is not only repair the cage, the floor of the cage we have now, the netting, but expand the cage out at Mills and double the size of it. It looks to us like there's plenty of room to do that. Again, that would be somewhere around $9,000 to do that with one of these vendors as well. So the total gift for this year, fall, some of this work would get done in the fall for sure, and possibly early next year, is a total of $27,000 for that work, for those diamonds for this year. And I think the idea is going forward that in working with you and Ed, we'd like to, make a gift of some sort of capital improvement, as that's what we're thinking about these things, to some of the diamonds in town that over time, our budget willing, we can kind of help out and improve the experience for some of the baseball and softball players at the youth level in town. Any questions about that specific part of the gift, the field improvements?
But let me ask the commissioners or our staff, does someone have any questions?
Hi,
Stacy?
Stacy.
Hey, Kevin, nice to meet you. So this looks great and it's very generous. I just am wondering the cost that you come up with if you're gifting the money to the town. Okay, when you gift the money to the town, thank you. We're just wondering have you put into the budget prevailing wage, because when the town goes out for some of these things, if they're over a certain amount of money, that we have to pay prevailing wage, or are you suggesting, I don't know, Eddie, if you've talked in depth about this, or breaking it up into different projects, because otherwise it does hit prevailing wage costs, and those are fairly astronomical, and not something that you typically would have to do if you guys are just doing it on your own or through your own personal residence type things.
Stacy, we have not talked about anything to do with prevailing wages. What we're thinking of is I don't know what the threshold is that hits prevailing wage, but we're thinking of these as 3 different gifts that would all be under $10,000. So each gift would kind of be itemized separately to the town. And I don't know if that helps with avoiding some of those issues or not.
It does, as long as the project cost stays under 10,000.
Yes.
So it's the gift is the donation, but as long as the project cost stays under 10,000.
Yes.
And Kristen is my procurement expert, but I do know that is the trigger number,
Okay.
but it is the full cost of it.
Yeah, that's why we've kind of tried to split them. We were aware of that. And that's why we've tried to get pricing to say, hey, where are we with some of these things? And so each of these, thinking of these as 3 different projects. If you look on slide 3 under creation of showcase fields and coded field improvements gift to the town, we've itemized these out as 3 different things. So each project, we don't anticipate being more than $9,999 per project.
Gotcha.
so-
And it looks like you have spread them out over some seasons too, so they're not all happening at the same time, because that, even if they were at different locations, could potentially trigger our more law-abiding people in the finance
could.
department.
Okay, I mean, our goal is to start on small, provided we got approval from your commission as soon as possible, given the winter's getting closer to setting in. And from my understanding is they want the grass to get some sunlight in order to set properly. So we do want to prioritize that first, and then look at the other projects whenever we can, and coordinating with Ed whenever we can get those done. Our hope is that, before the spring season starts in April 1, that we can have all 3 of these projects completed.
Okay.
My only other thing that oh, sorry, Kristen, why don't you go?
Okay, so it's a couple of different things. So it's not procurement standards because it is a gift to the town and we can utilize the funds without the thresholds, but the prevailing wage is actually a labor law because they're working and doing work within the town. When you give something to the town, when you give something to our department, it has to go and get approved by the select board first. So you can put a gift with a intention. An example that we had recently was that flag football donated $5,000 to go towards the sand injection project that then was procured by the town because town monies was used. If no town monies are going to be used, and we don't have to do the procurement side, but it has to be under prevailing wage because it's an improvement of a town asset. So the town would still have to be the person that's actually procuring the service and getting a quote, but we don't have to follow the same law, like 10,000, non-10,000, because it's a full gift, not a penny is coming from a taxpayer, and then it kind of bypasses in that way. And you have different sets of rules, but it has to come into the town, be deposited with the town, be paid through the town. A service agreement has to be drawn by the town, and the select board has to accept the gift before we can move forward.
So in short, as long as the select board accepts it, the money can go as high as we want it to, but we still have to pay prevailing wage. Got it. I do have one more question, but I'm gonna let Matt go because
No, Stacy, go ahead. You go first. You're probably gonna ask the one I'm gonna ask.
So, and Eddie, this involves you. It looks like my predecessor had on her capital improvement plan to do an overall athletic fields master study. I believe it was scheduled for this year, but it got bumped due to COVID. But while I think it is important to do these diamonds, I don't necessarily, for the optics of things, want to supersede different projects. I want to make sure that we are looking at the town as a whole, and I am still very new, so I want to see what the commissioner's take is on that. If we're chipping away field by field or facility by facility, I'm not saying we should wait till FY25, but I do know that that is a conversation coming up later in our agenda. And Ed, I don't know, you're out there every day, all day. These fields, if you're saying that they need it, they need it. I'm not questioning that. I just want to make sure we're not missing something that's not necessarily a diamond or not necessarily an athletic field either.
This doesn't do anything to our 5-year capital plan. This is simply a gift to improve a couple quality diamonds for the program. I have no problem with the gift.
Perfect.
I don't think it supersedes anything. It's, again, much like the lacrosse wall from last year, much like the sand injection that Kristen mentioned. It falls in line with different groups want to better the programs, and Little League has my full support for these projects.
Perfect. Thanks, Eddie.
You're welcome.
We've done things like this before, Stacey. These are relatively small projects, even though I know raising the money in a program, this is not a small amount of money to raise, but in terms of field projects, these are relatively small projects. And as long as they meet with Eddie's approval and he's fine with whatever's being done and it's done to his specifications, then usually the commission is good with it. I'm not to sway anybody to vote for or against it, but that's, he's usually our kind of our guidance on that.
Perfect.
So, Michelle has a question.
Any of the additions require more maintenance? I mean, expanding the lanes, like the batting cages or to multiple lanes, will that require anything additional from the town going forward? And are we working that into either future gifts, or do we need to be working that into sort of our maintenance budget going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question, Michelle. I think what Ed and I have talked about is that, and that's kind of the second part of whether this is a gift or not, I don't know, but Needham baseball and softball has been spending some money to help the town maintain some of the fields the past few years. And I don't think this is a requirement or seen as a gift, so to speak. But one of the things we'd like to do is increase that spending and focus a significant amount of money, and this is on slide 3 as well, to those same fields, Small Mills and Avery, and come up with a maintenance program that's a little more regular than what we've been doing in the past. And really, because we have teams playing on those fields, for example, every night in the spring. And without someone coming in every week, they really take a beating. So to date, we've been, spending roughly $25,000 a year in helping the town maintain some of these fields using an approved vendor from Eddie and his team. What we'd like to do is focus about that same amount of money on those 3 diamonds that get used heavily, so that they're always in good shape and don't deteriorate quickly. And then we've earmarked another $27,000 to help support the other fields in town. So what we're trying to do here is really, for Small Mills and Avery, 2 of those are Little League diamonds used for baseball. Avery's used for softball. Our hope is that we can really make them look really good for our key months of the year. And that is, April through August, because we have a summer season as well. And make just people really feel good about the program and participating in Needham baseball and softball, because, some of the things and feedback we've got lately has not been all positive, and we want to try to change that perception. I can't tell you that baseball is a sport across the country that is losing participation, but that is not the case in Needham. We have extremely strong numbers, and I really don't know why. I'd like to say we do a good job with our programs, but it is a headwind. And what we'd like to do is part of this gift is to make people keep that going strong, keep the kids playing the sport, and make them feel really good about the experience they're getting on these diamonds that we have in town. If you look at some of the other diamonds around, I coach a lot of travel baseball, and I did softball with my daughter when she was younger. Every town seems to have some really signature fields. In Westwood, they got an absolutely beautiful diamond. It looks like Fenway Park every time we go there. Our hope is that we can create an experience like that for our kids over time, where these fields, as they grow up and start playing the sport, when they finally get to the age where they can play in these diamonds, they'll really feel excited about it. So that's kind of the goal. I don't know if that helps answer, Michelle, but back to your question, it would expand the diamond, but I think, with Eddie's blessing, we would really be maintaining that on a more regular basis. And that hasn't, I'm not blaming anyone, but the batting cage itself at Mills hasn't, there's so many other priorities in town with high school sports and other diamonds. It really hasn't been maintained that well. So what I'm trying to do with the support of the board and the committee is really put a program in place that the town will be happy with, that we can, do this more regularly and make sure that people are feeling good about that batting cage and these other diamonds.
Kevin, I have a question. What is it that you're doing at Avery? What's happening at Avery? I don't see that detail.
Yeah, so I think Claxton has been talked about as being redone. I don't know exactly where that stands. I'm sure you have a better idea than I do, but the softball folks on our board utilize a handful of diamonds in town, And as we try to prioritize mills and smalls on the baseball side, they would like to, spend some of our program's money every year on making sure Avery can get upgraded. I mean, maybe down the road, they'd like to put a batting cage there if that were possible for the softball players. But right now, if you go look at Avery, the infield is really rough. I don't know that it has the right dirt mix all over the place. The lines need to be cut. It really needs a professional upkeep right now. Home plate is sticking out of the ground. The mound is deteriorated. I'm not sure there's a rubber there. There's a bush growing right in the field through the backstop area. So we want to just have it cut, professionally done. So when the kids start to play in April, they'll have a really good experience.
Commissioner Tulin, question?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. And just to address your comment, Kevin, yes, Claxton is on the docket to be completely revitalized, and I believe our goal is to make that our signature softball location for both fields. New lights, new fields. The design funds, I think, were just approved by town meeting. So, that, Eddie, that's probably what, 2 years out before that's online? I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, so it's scheduled for the summer of 2022. Designers have been approved. We'll start working with Weston Sampson this year to come forth with a capital budget request next year's CIP for a renovation of summer 2022. That's correct.
Yeah. So Kevin, that will be the signature softball. Now, whether that hits all the age groups, that's, obviously one of the things I know that baseball deals with. But my other question actually is somewhat back to the original conversation on prevailing wage and cost. So Eddie, it's really for you. If these proposed projects go over $27,000 in total cost because of whether it's prevailing wage, are we as a town going to be on the hook to finish them off? Or Eddie, do you feel that the subcontractors that would be engaged here would be able to do the work that's being requested for the price? Because honestly, that's the other thing. Is like, I don't want to start something, there not be enough money in the coffers for it, and then we as a town potentially are on the hook to close it out.
Yeah, that's a good question, Matt. I'll be honest with you. I've never heard that. Usually a gift to the town is a gift, so it is exempt. So I'd have to lean on Dave Davison or someone that knows the law. Every gift that I've accepted has always been exempt because it's a gift. We gift, and then it's not subject to the same rules that I'm aware of. Like Kristen said, the town, if it had the funding, anything over 10 grand has to be from 10 to 35,000 has to be 3 quotes. Anything over 35,000 has to be legally bid out with prevailing wage. I never was under the impression that gifts were subject to that same rule because they're privately fundraised. And again, the lacrosse wall is a perfect example. Prevailing wage was not a part of that project with the lacrosse wall. Countless monies were spent, but let's check on that because I'm not aware of that procurement law. I can't answer that question, Matt. It's not my fault.
Yeah, and I guess that, and I'm not, it was news to me too. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile. But I guess my question is, if, let's just say that the DeFazio to redo the infield diamond is more than $10,000, right? And that's what baseball can afford to give us this fall, right? And we don't find that out until we're in the middle of the project or whatever. We realize it's 12 or 15. I mean, what's our plan of action? Kevin, do you as baseball plan to, that would then erode the other projects? Like, how do we accommodate for the fact that, you're offering 27 and it's a wonderful gift, but if we can't get it all done, we just going to say we couldn't get all those projects done for that amount of money? Is that how we're going to operate? Or are we going to be asking the town to match, or Ed, are you going to have to, your crew going to have to pick up some of the gap if there is a gap?
Yeah, Matt, I'll just jump in. I think we've gotten pricing, for example, on small from 3 vendors. It's all under 10 grand. It was, one was 9,400, one was 9,600, one was 95. They're all in the ballpark. So we feel pretty, and it's very detailed I'm happy to share them with you if it helps, but it's very detailed explanations about what they're going to do. So, I mean, I'll agree, I'm new at this, but I'd be hard pressed to think that if it was going to be more than that, they would let us know. And I think I can be fair to say that if it is more, we'll bill them out separately to keep it under 10 if that's what it takes to get it done. And we'd be happy to cover the cost if there is overage from our program. But because we built in this other money in the maintenance spending that we've got approved from our board to do. So I think if there is overage, I don't expect it to be. I think we'd be happy covering the cost for it.
Okay. Great. So, Stacy and Kristen, go ahead.
Yes, so I did touch base with Tatiana after the thing was done. So I did ask about the prevailing wage, which is where that comes from. The town would enter a service agreement with any vendor that we had, Matt, to your point. So they would be bound to the amount of money that they said they were going to, and then the gift would cover that. So if as long as they're within the quote and it's a service agreement and the monies are agreed to, they can't go over the service agreement amount without a change order.
Okay, so the next step, if we decide to, if the commission is okay with this, and we can talk about that, would be for us to say, we think this is a good idea, and ask Kevin and Needham Baseball and Softball to work with our Park and Recreation staff to move it forward. Is that the right order? I'm asking Stacy and Kristen.
Stacy, you're on mute.
You're muted, yeah.
I know. We would have to go to the select board first to get approval for the gift. And then, yes, we would work together to move the project forward.
But we can make a recommendation to the select board.
Yes.
Or
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
I just have one more question. Looking at your slide 3 and knowing that we're having a capital budget plan and we already have many diamonds, the first bullet on the third box, meet with town officials on plan to prioritize Needham baseball and softball support within the town. The way that's phrased, I take a little bit of offense to that because you guys are very highly prioritized. Eddie's got 4 diamonds on his schedule, if I looked at it correctly. So I don't want to sound unappreciative of what you guys are asking, but it sounds like you guys don't have priority and what we already covered with Claxton. So I just don't know if that bullet would go over so well with some of the select board, knowing the projects and others in town, knowing the projects that were pushed through Eddie's capital plan and where the diamonds are, because, you know, they are all highly prioritized. And so just a wordsmithing on that might be, you know, and also what we've done with Walker Gordon, which in my mind is probably the signature field in town. You know, Needham baseball and softball is getting a fair amount here.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so I would, if there aren't any more questions, I would entertain a motion from a commissioner. Oh, I'm sorry, Eddie. Eddie has a question.
No, I just want to say one last thing. I think this is wonderful. Again, working with the groups on a master plan together, much like soccer gives the town monies to be used to soccer fields, lacrosse is giving us gifts. So I'm very appreciative. And Kevin and I spoke about, we have 25 diamonds in the spring. On certain days, we might be prepping 4 fields for varsity and JV, 2 softball contests, 2 baseball, sometimes 4 to 6 games we'll be prepping for. So sometimes this spring, as Kevin mentions, the Averys and some of the other outskirts field that aren't associated with Needham High School athletics. So our support is driven by Needham High School athletics, all the way down to freshman sports. We have to do everything, line, groom, everything. So sometimes there's weeks, as Kevin mentioned, and as we know, just by the luck of the draw, that we won't get to an Avery for several weeks. And as Kevin mentioned, the groups are out there every day. These fields are getting used, and they're getting used hard. So this fits in that kind of kumbaya approach of everybody helping get to the common goal. Avery Field, to me, personally, I look at that as one of my favorite fields because I don't know if you've all seen what we've done there over the past years, but the trees that we've added, the trees up the driveway, the outfield, the whole effect that we've tried to start at Avery is really new. I mean, before that, it was just kind of a dirt patch out there. So I love the fact that baseball, especially softball, wants to make that a little bit better than just a dirt patch out there. And I think, again, I still have more visions of improvements at Avery Field, but I think, again, for the softball folks, Avery is a key component to their program. And sometimes, and I don't want to use the word neglect, but it isn't prioritized, like Matt said, because our priorities are driven by Claxton 1 and 2, Memorial Park, Warner Field, McLeod Field, and we somewhat don't have time for some of those ancillary fields. So not that we don't care, because we care greatly, shown by the efforts and the works that we've done out there. So I'm just really appreciative that we can work together on the common goal, which is try to create a nice, safe playing surface for the kids. And I think, again, this has my full support.
Great.
Sorry.
Great. No, I appreciate that. One of my favorite things that we did was improve the parking at Avery, which used to be a nightmare. And we angled it in, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get restrooms there. And we never really could solve that, right? But we spent a lot of time on that subject over the years. So if there aren't any further questions, I would ask if Commission would like to make a recommendation to support this project and advance it to the next level, which seems like it would be the the select board.
Do we need a motion or a recommendation?
I think a motion would be nice. What do you think? Stacy, Kristen, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm getting the nod from Kristen.
We're so official.
Neither or.
As you
So glad these are recorded.
Hey, Cynthia, it's
Yeah.
Kevin. I just had one question. It's not clear to me the next steps. You guys are much more knowledgeable about how town bodies and work and organizations. What if this were approved, what would be the next steps? And can you give me some sense of timing? The only reason I ask is some of the vendors we spoke with, and Ed, I think Ed agreed, was that the sooner we can get the project for the redo of the infield diamond at Small underway, the better off, because if you waited till the spring, our programs start early April. And as you know, that's often a tough month to even do work. Do you have some sense of what you would need from us on a next step if we move forward?
Well, our recommendation would be to go to this for the select board to approve this. So you may have noticed things in town government don't move with the speed of light. So I don't know, Stacy, what do you think? Could we get this to them? I mean, they meet this week, so it's clearly not going to, I think they meet tomorrow, right? So it's clearly not going to get for that meeting.
They do meet yep, they meet tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I'm just trying to see when their next one is.
They probably meet.
November 10th is the next meeting, because I get to present at that meeting. In fact, we're going to accept a gift tomorrow night at the select board.
Yeah, so we're probably looking at that kind of timing that it gets to them, hopefully for their next meeting. Won't be there for tomorrow. That agenda is already set and published. And then I think from that point, you could move forward.
First,
Stacy,
we need a check.
I'm sorry?
First, we need the check.
Yeah. We would need to check, yes. But I mean, in terms of getting there.
We need the gift, and then we would internally draft the notice to the select board and then bring it to the select board to have them approve it. So that's
So that's the
a
timing. I don't
three-step version.
Okay.
late in this season, that's into November, but I don't see any way that we could shorten that up.
Okay.
Yeah, usually what we, Kevin, going forward, I think, and we've talked about this with a couple of your predecessors, is to try and lock this stuff in at the beginning of the year. We can try and work it out with Ed and figure it out for the whole year, so that we're not trying to cram, because I think we had something similar, Eddie, keep me honest, around Small as well in the past, where we just ran out of runway in the fall to get it done. And plus there was fall ball being played. So it's a really small window to try and do these renovations or work when you guys are actively using the fields. Now, Ed, if this didn't start, like if we didn't get money until November 15th, is that going to mean that this project is pretty much on hold until April? Is that too late?
Well, forgive me, I don't think we're getting money. We're accepting the donation, which is a gifted of a field renovation. So we're not getting a check. Kevin is paying I shouldn't say Kevin, it's not Kevin's money. Little League is hiring a contractor that's been approved by the town to perform work. The gift is actually a renovated diamond. It's not a check for money. Let's
So the gift is.
be straight.
Right.
Got
the
it.
gift-
Gift is actually physically improving one of the fields. And I'm not sure if Kevin, again, I lean upon Dave Davison and Kate for this, but we accepted a gift of $20,000 from Hillcrest Garden a couple weeks ago. That gift is being formally accepted tomorrow night, but we have the gift already. So I'm not sure we're on the same page with how the process goes. You should probably put a SOP together so that we're clear. Again, it's not a check. It's actually they're hiring
Yep.
someone with their monies and then gifting the project to the town in retrospect is typically how we work these things. So I think we need to circle back on that one.
Okay, so why don't we ask our staff, Stacy, Kristen, if you can talk to Dave Davison, because I'm with Eddie that in the past we accept a finished gift.
So,
I don't know the exact sequence of when they get the approval to go ahead and start the project. So that's a question I can't answer, Kevin, because I just don't know. But you're right, they don't give us a check. They give us a finished product and then we accept that finished product.
exactly.
Kevin, I'll reach out to town management tomorrow and find out exactly which way this will go, and then I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks, Stacy.
So then, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept Needham Baseball and Softball's generous gift of field improvements of $27,000 to redo the infield diamond at Small, to redo the batting cages at Mills, and other potential upgrades to the Avery infield between now and the spring of next year.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. I have to take a roll call vote, so I will start with Commissioner Tulin,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes,
Aye.
Commissioner Gerstle.
I will abstain from this vote.
Okay, the chair is also an aye. So it passes with 3 ayes and 1 abstention. So thank you, Kevin, and thank you to Needham Baseball and Softball for this gift. And if we can help along the way, we certainly will do that. Our staff will certainly shepherd this through the next step. And thank you, Eddie, because as always, we rely on Eddie's guidance and judgment pretty much before we do anything with the field. So thank you, Ed.
Like I said, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you all for the support. I appreciate it. What we do as a board. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you don't have to.
Run, Kevin, run.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a long
Great
day.
job, Kevin.
I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Now let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is our director's report. Oh, thanks, Eddie. Eddie's probably leaving too. Bye, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Nobody wants to stay. Oh.
Would you?
All right. Director's report.
I'm working on it right now, so you guys can follow along.
I printed mine out so that I could follow and make notes in case I had a question.
When do you have a question?
When I have a question.
Okay. So I will go through this quickly. All programs are by and large ending. If they're not ending already, they're ending within the next week or so. A couple of our programs are going through like the very beginning of December. There's our outdoor nature, Hardy New England programs. Saturday, we had our family fun event at the RRC. It was, there's a lot going on. There's more than you would have expected. in any given time. We can circle back to that. You guys got that? Well, here, I feel like I'm talking to myself.
Yes, well, yes.
There was
thank
as you all
you.
know, there was a quick incident, and Kristen and I handled it. We called the ambulance. We walked around and told all the kids that we called the ambulance so they could see the trucks. It was part of the event, and we sent mom to the hospital and a very dazed dad home with 2 kids who were very miffed that they didn't get to go in the ambulance, mostly, and that was really it. The rest of the day was very uneventful compared to the first 45 minutes. And the evening event where people came through and drove through was well attended. 40 or 50 cars came through to see the pumpkins.
It's great.
And Hometown Weekly came.
Oh, good.
And did something on it. We're waiting to see that. And we got a lot of feedback from parents picking up their pumpkins today because we kept them safely inside, away from the animals and the teenagers, until this morning. And people came by, and the parents, and as a parent, my kids were there and watching them carve pumpkins and paint literally everything. And then we were just like, no, really, leave everything. And they just walked away. Like, it was
Oh, nice.
well spent. So it may be something that we keep in our wheelhouse moving forward. But overall, it was a great event.
Great, and thank you to our staff, both of you, for administering first aid and keeping calm, and appreciate that you were there. And Stacy, as you and I talked, maybe in the future we need to make sure there is someone there who's CPR or first aid trained, right, for events. We never really.
It's not something we always work on. Scrapes and boo-boos and ice packs. I think I have to work more on pressure bandages and tourniquets, because that's what this one needed. So the quote of the day, though, was the 3-year-old looked at me and said, "Mommy's got a bleeder," and I was like, "Mommy does, and we're gonna fix it."
Yes, and did we reach out to this family? Is this lady? She's okay.
She's fine. So I emailed her that night. The kids didn't actually get to paint their pumpkins, so one of our staff members painted their names on the pumpkins, and we took a picture, sent it to the mom, and she wrote back. She was very appreciative, but very embarrassed, and very mad at her husband who bailed on her at the last minute. So she is fine.
Good. Oh.
And everybody is doing pretty well. We actually got a couple of emails of people that were there thanking us for handling it the way we did. So
Great. Terrific. Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
The rest of the day was kind of boring.
I'm guessing, yeah.
After that, geez.
The pools have closed. We're working with building maintenance department to coordinate the winterization. But the covers are on. Everything is shut down. Weston and Sampson are mostly done. There are some things that they need to drop off for the splash pad, but they are covers basically to keep dirt and leaves out. They don't have anything to do with the winterization.
All right. And I haven't been by lately. Is the water features, are they stored somewhere? We don't want them to get scratched again, because that seemed to be a big problem in the past.
They're all in the filter room currently, and will live there throughout the season.
Great.
Fields and permitting, fall season, like I said, is wrapping up. The gates at Cricket have been replaced. They look great. That should slow down the access of yahoos driving on our fields.
Yep.
Currently, our biggest whose job is this situation throughout the town departments is the safety lights around the track at DeFazio. We have located the timer system, and now we just have to figure out how to replace the bulbs. Town electrician is looking into this because we need a bucket truck to go up and get that. So these are not the field lights, they are the brown, older safety lights.
Oh, and you can't drive the bucket truck on the track, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
So significance, we're still having trash issues at Memorial. I got an email actually from Eddie that went through DPW and to superintendent, because it's the Memorial Field area and the stores around that, just the trash is overflowing Kara's from DPW is reaching out to the businesses to ask them, because a lot of them do not have trash barrels outside their stores anymore. So we are working with the businesses in town to see if we can get them to help us with the trash situation. And I reached out earlier today to Dan Lee to get the athletes involved and
Okay.
working, keeping their spaces as clean as possible. And the graffiti is amateur and wildly inappropriate, has been covered up. And we just have to keep an eye on it. And we will work with the rail trail committee to see if we can get some people going out there on a regular basis. So it is nothing concerning. It is probably some young teenagers spraying just various parts of anatomy that need to be covered over so that the little kids don't need to see it.
Right. So Stacy, we had, which I don't know if it's still in place, we had a trail steward program. And we had trail stewards who walked all of our trails. They were assigned, they picked a trail and they were assigned it, and then they reported back. And they reported if a tree was down, but they would report something like graffiti. And it was primarily overseen by conservation. I don't know if anyone is still doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if that has fallen by the wayside.
It has fallen by the wayside. Angela was trying to keep it up and running, but there was very little action happening. I am having a Rail Trails Commission meeting this week, and I'm going to work with them to try and reinstitute the Trail Steward program, as well as the other things that are on that list. But until we have a full staff, I don't know. I mean, right now, Chris could take it over a bit, but not in its entirety. We actually found this because we hung a story walk along the trails at Rosemary for our event. And Chris was the one that found them. So
Okay.
we're gonna take care of it before the story walk.
All right. Well, it was a good program. I mean, it was,
Yep.
And
No, I
we
think
had
it's a great idea.
not just the rail trail, but all the trails. And there were people who were very devoted to their trail. So I'm sure if we could activate that again, but not maybe the right time during COVID, but I don't know. It is outside, so people are probably still walking. So, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, Cindy, the only thing, I agree that when we don't have full staff, it's hard, but I would also say that there's probably more people utilizing trails now than there have been in years. So we
Yep.
might be able to actually draw more volunteers, because I know Town Forest is a big spot. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in Cutler every week, 2 or 3 times a week, and there's boatloads of people in there all the time. So
Would you like to be a trail steward, Matt? Because that's, that position might be open. Oh, actually, Cutler isn't ours. Never mind.
Cutler's not ours. Yeah.
Cutler.
And they don't like bicyclists on trails anyway. Usually we get yelled at and things thrown at us.
Oh, that's true. It's only the town forest where we let those bikes go. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All playgrounds are open. Our assessment is going to begin this week from Playground Inspections of New England. CPC updates, Chris?
Not at this time. The only thing is that any article that wants to go in front of for the 2021 season has to be submitted by December 4th. So we will probably have a meeting within the next few weeks. I think Karis reached out about setting up the next round of meetings. So all applicants have to have their application in by December 4th.
So for us, that means the track project has to go in
Mhm.
again.
Just
I
resubmit and change the dates.
was gonna say, so no changes to it other than the dates, right? It's I mean, I don't have anything to update.
We might
Probably
jazz up the slides a little, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's going to be the same.
And we don't think the cost should not have changed dramatically. Okay. What about Walker Pond? Would we wouldn't be ready to put anything forth now because
We wouldn't be submitting that one. At this point, it's the town. It is a group effort, and I don't know that we personally would be the ones submitting it, but we have a meeting coming up, so I can find out. Katie has really started to run with that one because it's now got the legs of the town manager's office, and we're involved certainly,
Okay.
but I think the submittal would come from them.
Great. Okay, perfect. As long as we don't forget,
Yep.
as long as we don't lose
No.
track of it. Perfect.
It's on a list, it's
great,
just not on our list.
Okay. Thanks,
The
Chris. Okay.
assistant director position has been
Wait,
approved.
just a quick question back on this. Yay, but quick question back on the CPC. Chris, is that a submission date when people are gonna come discuss them, or is that when they need to be submitted by?
That's when they need to be submitted by. We collect them all in December, and then I want to say the first meeting in January is when we go through all the applicants to deem if they are eligible for the buckets that CPC falls into, being historical, open space, housing, and Kristen, I cannot remember the fourth one.
What did you say? Open space, community housing,
Open
Community
space,
housing is the one you forgot.
yep, community housing, historical.
historical.
So thank you.
Recreation.
So yeah, we'll start reviewing them and deem them eligible in January.
Because I just think that we should probably, and Michelle might need some of your help, but we should probably be getting that date on the agenda of the high school track team, Needham Track Club, so that we can get participants to show up at that meeting to talk about it versus trying to do something offline. I think if people show up or, virtually show up, it'll help enhance our success for that project.
Yes, Chris.
What we would do is just from the notes from the last one is that the reason why the CPC didn't have it go on the warrant article for this year, they just thought it was bad timing of where the scope of the project was. All the CPC members thought it was a valid option. It hit all the criteria. They just thought it was the wrong time to do it. So with it go back in December, it looks like it's going to be welcome with open arms, that you really wouldn't have someone presenting the article until probably late January, early February. That is probably when you would want to have someone from the Needham Track Club, someone from the high school track teams come in there. You don't want to have them there the first meeting. You would want to wait until they present in front of the CPC board.
Yeah, just so that, if you guys can get us that date, then I can help make sure that we get that, whatever the date is. I think it would be good to get the community input on that. Because I agree with you, Chris,
Will
but I
do.
just don't want people to change their minds, right? We know
Okay,
how that can
fine.
happen.
Chris,
There's also a public hearing, Matt, and that's generally, so the TPC votes on eligibility based on the law, not about whether they like the project or not. And then it goes over a review. They do due diligence, which will be very quick since they already did that this last time. But public hearing for the TPC, it's typically in March, and it got postponed twice because of last year, but there's tons of notice ahead of time, and you'll definitely know from the meetings here.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay. Assistant director position was approved. Woohoo. I put in a couple edits to the posting, and it should be posted later this week.
Yay.
Mhm.
Great. Fingers crossed we get some great applicants. Okay.
Capital budget was submitted this past week. Operating budget was submitted 12 minutes ago, earlier this afternoon. Kristen put in some very long hours to make that happen, because the turnaround from when we got the information to when we had to kick it back was very, very short this year. But we got it done mostly in time, and nobody has yelled at me yet. So winner, winner. Our meeting with town management is next Monday. So that is when we go over the budget documents and discuss it with them.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristen. Lots of money in there for opening and closing in the Rosemary Recreation Complex.
We are asking for a very fair raise in our budget, just slightly over the recommended 3%. It's like 26.
Okay, well. All right.
See how it goes.
See how it goes. I mean, we had to use some emergency money this past year, so.
We were instructed at this time to put in a budget as if we were operating without COVID. So it is a full operating budget. So that was the number we put in. And I can give more details after our meeting next time with town management, but most of the money is pool related. both on, because we never had an opening or closing line item, and staffing needs.
Okay, great. Well, that leads to one of my questions. Typically around this time, well, sometimes around this time, we would get a report that would give us an idea of what went on at Rosemary in the summer for number of visits and participants and what kind of money we collected and that kind of thing. Do you think something like that will be available for us in the near future?
Yep, Kim has already started working on that. She actually brought that to my attention this week, or not today, but last week. So we do have the numbers that we don't have exact numbers, but we have percentages that I gave to you all summer in the director's report, but she's going to work on our financial numbers.
Okay.
So we should definitely have that. It won't be as lengthy as last year's report by Devin.
Right.
But we will definitely we will definitely put something together for you for the next meeting.
Great. Okay. Because yeah, I mean, we'd like to see number of participants and what we did for swim lessons and lots of stuff that we won't have much of this year, but it would still be nice for us to have.
Right. No lessons.
Okay. Great. Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, Stacy, why were we so crunched on capital and operating budgets? Because typically these are things that, if I'm not mistaken, we review prior to submission.
The answer is, I don't know exactly why, because I'm new, but every department head is like, this is the craziest turnaround ever, because it was less than 2 weeks from when we got the numbers from Dave and when we had to submit them. Capital is just crazy busy, and I don't honestly know why. I just know that it was fast. I can find out. I think typically there's more like a month. That was my understanding from talking to the department heads, but I don't know if it's just the way the numbers fell or if it was COVID related. I don't have a good answer.
Okay, because I just have and I don't know if this is an agenda item for today, but I have a number of questions on the budget. So if we want to, I can hold those until at least the capital budget, until we get to that, if that's on our agenda.
Kristen is feeding me answers because she's good like that. Delayed town meeting pushed everything out. So everything to prep for town meeting obviously went first, and then the turnaround for budgets just had to move faster because of it.
So we can go into the capital budget, Matt. That's part of the director's report. It's not separate on our agenda. So we can go into that right from the director's report. Does anyone have any other questions or comments on the director's report? I have one, Stacey. One left. Did we make any money off fall programs at all? Did we collect any revenue? Did we offer everything for free?
No, we actually made money off of all of our programs.
Yes. Okay. I felt like so many
in the
things,
fall.
We were doing so many things online, and
No, tennis was banner, archery was great, puddle stompers. We had quite a few programs that went really, really well. Girls on the Run was epic. So
Great.
basically all of our programs, fall programs that were outdoor, we definitely made money on.
Okay. Great. Well, if there are no more questions, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
This is just more of a comment. I really want to show the appreciation that Stacy and the staff and all the programs that we did for the summer and into the fall, with everything that's going on right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we did not have one COVID case that affected any of our summer programs at the pool.
And Chris, your kids are watching videos.
Or any of our summer programs that we did in the fall. That I think we all did. My what? Oh, the streaming up. I just want to say I want to compliment the staff that with all of the things going on right now, you're seeing hockey, as a matter of fact, has to take a 2-week break because of outbreaks and cases. That what we did and what the staff did, I'm very proud of how we had 0 cases with anything that happened in the summer and the fall. So I just want that to be known by the staff.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's Good point. Yes, and so kudos to the staff and to our summer staff for implementing some great procedures and then executing. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chris, because that's, we shouldn't let that go by without a big thank you. Please extend our thanks to the rest of the staff and any summer staff who's still hanging around. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Now we can go to capital. All right.
So the spreadsheet, so our capital, my brain works in a very particular way. It's very linear. So I took all of our capital projects that Patty had submitted that were in our FY21 budget that have all gotten bumped or mostly gotten bumped. And then I added some of the things that I think the department and the commission are looking for. And that's why I was clear that this is a working document. It's not set in stone. It's not submitted to anybody. It's just how my brain works. And so a lot of the items on here were the ones that I pulled from our folders, which was athletic fields, cricket, open space. And those were the three. And then playground project, I have in there as a very generic name, knowing that we're going to do the assessment and that's going to help prioritize our playgrounds for us. So that when we submit, I didn't want to put in, say, Riverside for FY25 and then find out that Riverside is really more slated to be an FY29. So that's where the playground project design and construction comes in, and the similar ideas for the outdoor courts. And when I say outdoor courts, I mean both the tennis courts and the basketball courts and the potential of a pickleball court as part of our capital improvement plan. And so those are the things that I think that's where I feel the department should go and the commission should be interested in. Park bathroom is, you can see, is blank. This came up because I went to visit Riverside to meet with a resident and I saw the bathrooms that are no longer bathrooms that probably haven't been bathrooms in a decade.
Or longer.
At least.
Yeah.
But all the guts are there. I don't know why they were shut down, but so I don't know if that's, and because of the location of Riverside, I feel like if we can salvage that, that should be definitely on our horizon. But like Mills has a bathroom, Walker Pond does not. And whether we are just looking to put in new bathrooms or we're looking to upgrade the DeFazios and the Claxtons, which if the Claxtons are as old as I think they are, I have used them when I played high school softball. So that's concerning. But the reason why it doesn't have any numbers on there is I don't know. I just think we should think about it, and we will definitely have to work with water and sewer and building and DPW. So that will definitely be a collaboration project.
So Stacy, once we can get together live and in person, I think I'd recommend Chris Gerstle buying you a favorite beverage and talking about the Mills bathroom.
So Stacy, you have no idea how long it took us to get the Mills back. They were approved by town meeting, I think early on in my tenure as a commissioner. And for years, we could not advance the project to get it constructed and completed. And then once we did, we've had some issues. We went down to see it, you'd walk in and you'd be deep in water, or it was just, but anyway, we finally got it constructed and it works most of the time, but I was so sick. I have one friend who was a former commissioner who must have asked me every other week, when are we getting bathrooms at Mills? Because town meeting approved it. And I would bring it to our director and she'd say, yep, it's on my list. Yep. And it never freaking got done. Right. I mean, I don't know.
That was Dave DeChico's predecessor, Cindy, was the one, if I recall correctly, was the one who asked that all the time. Because he made a pot shot at that when I was running back then.
Actually, this person goes back before that.
Oh my, okay.
Before that. for
Oh.
that. So,
Well, I'm not, Mills doesn't need to be upgraded, though I spent a lot of time down there this year because it was never in working order until like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago.
right, well,
Now it's
un-
all working.
right. But I'm all in favor,
Um,
anything we can do to get some facilities out there. You know, I mentioned Avery when we were talking to Kevin Lavelle, and I mean, Avery is you know, it's used a lot and there's nowhere for those girls to go. I mean, it's, you know, anyway, it's
Well, and I think not part of the capital plan, but I think it's time to consider a contract situation for porta potties at some of our fields for the duration of the season. And work that out with, in conjunction with DPW and find out which fields. Like Avery is definitely one that comes to mind. Walker Gordon is way out there, nothing around there, same thing. Greens doesn't even have a bathroom. I mean, it has all of the downtown, but that doesn't necessarily help.
yeah, well, we'll have to talk because there are neighbors who will not enjoy that feature. So we'll have to talk. Chris.
I know in normal years, especially in the springtime, that the high school and some of the other athletic teams, quote unquote, sponsored a porta potty.
Yes.
Like the high school would put them at Newman because that's where the tennis team went. Needham baseball put one at Walker Gordon because that was their field, I guess, to do.
Cricket the same.
Is that
Cricket the same.
each
Yeah.
user group kind of went around and everyone would kind of take a field and that's what they would do it. And it seemed to work for a few years. But you're right. I think an action plan to have some consistency would be the right way to go.
I think consistency, I think the contract goes for us. I think the cleaning is more consistent. I think something gets tipped over, it gets fixed faster, all of those things. And we can build it, obviously you would have to approve this, build it into the field fees for the user groups. And then everybody pays
Yeah.
their little piece of it.
I think you're right. I think it could work at a lot of them. Avery, I don't think is quite as simple. There's residents right there. There is a building of condos. But anyway, it's a good point. Okay, so
on this list is the ones that my little brain, I spied, and then the ones that we typically run or are working on running with parks and forestry / engineering, sometimes water and sewer. And then obviously I want to know what you guys are thinking about on the horizon. Everything has clearly, for good reasons, gotten pushed out a little bit. Asking for design engineering for an ethic field study in the midst of COVID might be a tough sell. So I was creatively trying to push stuff around. The only thing we put in for FY22 officially was the purchase of open space. That is just a holding pattern every year we put in the event that something comes up, we have it in our plan. If it's not there and something comes up, we can't do anything about it.
right. So we've had that and we have used it at least once while I've been on the commission. So what I don't see here is anything related to Rosemary. And I thought there were some things that we may want to do at the pool that would capital and nature. Perhaps sunshades, screens, some sun's protection structure, things like that. And I thought it would probably be capital. And
yeah, so you're talking about the beach area, or are you talking about just in general, like over the tiers?
I'm talking in general. Could be either, could be all. I just thought it may be more money than we would have in our operating budget.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things on that list, Cindy, from the report
Yeah,
from spring.
Right. I thought we had a number of things in the Rosemary report. I guess the one that Devin and Angela put together and Kristen and whoever worked on it. Things that probably would lean more towards capital than operating. And I'd have to go back to that report, honestly, and I didn't do that today. I even thought that maybe things related to the pump system and things like that could be upgraded. I don't know if anyone else has a recollection of that, but I think there were a few things in that report that would perhaps be capital in nature.
I think there was a few things there. There's also the boat dock and the boats at Rosemary. So remember, we had the floating dock,
Right, the
Um,
dock system. We actually
the
had,
whole dock system and that.
right,
So
Yeah.
I do think that, to your point, Stacy, having a line item of Rosemary capital improvements probably is a line item to be added and,
Mhm.
you know, um,
Then as we get closer to that year, figure out what exactly that's going to be.
yeah.
yeah, that's a big facility. That's going to need capital improvements as we go
Mhm.
along. Some stuff is maintenance, but some of it is
We
going to
need
be,
a pump system in 10 years. I'm gonna.
well, but I think there was some that were recommended that we thought were a good idea, and I can't specifically speak to those right now, obviously, but,
I know what report you're talking about. I may even have it at my house.
yeah, I probably have it.
Things have been going back and forth so much.
I think I
don't
probably
even-
have one electronically. It was probably given to
Yeah.
us in the minutes.
Yeah, but I can certainly look at that and then update this.
So Stacy, why, so I understand, so one, thank you, Kristen, for pulling all this together. So please don't take this as pot shots. You're saying we're kicking off a playground project, but then we're not going to do anything till 2024. I mean, we had already allocated a plan and had playgrounds way earlier than this. And now all of a sudden, outdoor courts are taking priority over the playgrounds, and we had already had a plan for playgrounds. What was the rationale behind flipping those as well as pushing it out 2 years when you are getting the second assessment done of playgrounds in as many months?
So we're not to fade the original playground project that you're talking about. That was, you guys got DeFazio and Perry Park schematics. That money's already approved, so it's no longer in the capital plan. So that is the next on the
Okay.
docket. I don't know
Okay.
if it's, I mean, it's not specific to DeFazio and Perry. It can be, but that money is already, we already have that, which is why it's not here, which is why
Oh, okay.
the next one that you see is 24.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's
then
why
that would be the
court
same-
would come before it, so we could alternate.
And that would be the same reason why there's nothing on here for Claxton. Although I thought
Yes.
I thought we only did Claxton design, not Claxton construction.
That was my mistake. I'll send you an updated one. It's in fiscal 23. So, and I think it was $165,000 of construction. That might be $1 million.
And that would be with under the bottom part, right, Kristen, with Parks and
Yeah.
Forestry?
Yeah, that's with Park, that's why I'm just,
Yes,
Yeah, so
so
part-
that is, yes.
Yeah. DPW puts that one in, and I was just pulling, so you guys, because these are all things that you all care about, so I put them all together. The top
and then
bill
the
one,
Charles River one, I forget where we landed on that. I know we discussed that.
The boat launch?
No, the Dwight Field Charles River Center.
Oh, yeah, we bumped
Oh.
that when we were trying to do Rosemary.
We bumped that out, and then I don't know where we landed on it, if that ever got voted or if we determined that it was, some portion was actually, I don't know, necessity, or I forget where that, I see the project here, but I just don't remember that. I mean, maybe it's just good to have it there as a placeholder.
Oh,
yeah, it was, because the Charles River Center was finishing that building, the Grugan Center. And Eddie went up and looked at that with Phil Roby, and they were going to do some improvements to that field, but primarily I think to that slope.
Yeah,
Or
there
from
was
the field.
water runoff going down.
Right, and but I don't remember where we left it either, Matt. We kicked it around, and I think we just kicked it somewhere. I don't know where we ended with that.
Yeah, I don't know if we've necessarily agreed that that's required, but I know that there was a sentiment that if there was runoff coming from our property into somebody else's, that the town likely needed to do something. But the challenge is that we weren't really going to get any benefit from it other than not running our water or the runoff going into that. But I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly.
So I think it was pretty expensive. Whatever the price was, I thought it was outrageously expensive. And Eddie told me that I was crazy that it was actually not a bad price. It was totally what he expected. So
Yeah.
what did I know? But it was grading, right? Grading and then plantings and I don't know what else. But I believe it was in Eddie's court, right? It would be his work, not us, but it's our property,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So probably a question for him, right? Does he remember where we left it? Because I
Yeah,
don't
I think,
think,
yeah, I think Chris is right. We kicked it to the curb, and I think Eddie agreed, right, that we were going to kick it down the road because we had too many other things.
okay.
And
Okay.
then my last,
Uh,
sorry, Cindy, my last question on this is that age-old cricket building. So you want to talk about something that predates us. You know, that number probably can't even hold anymore, which is just scary to think that it would cost $1 million, $1.5 million to renovate that building and put in some bathrooms, but that's probably the reality. I just don't know where we stand on necessity of that. It's been on the capital budget and keeps getting kicked down the road since I've been on the commission. 8, 10
So
plus
I
years.
did jump those numbers a lot because looking at the past submission, there's no way that we're going to get it for that. Something has to be done to the building because the septic has failed. And so if we are going to ever use those bathrooms consistently, we need to do something. And if you're going to replace bathrooms, which is going to be the bulk of the cost, we should renovate, which is why the design for that project is, I think, pretty high. It may have to even go a little bit higher because of it, but
I can give you the little history because I've been around that long. That building is a mess, but the bulk, a big part of that design and a big part of the construction dealt with trying to put in a road where you could have a turnaround because there's not enough space. Or it's very difficult space and there's a fair amount of a slope there. So you have to do some serious grading to get a place where a car can pull in and turn around so that you can drop children off for programs and come back out. And at the time, we really wanted to do it because we thought that building was our only hope for program space. So we wanted to fix that building, renovate that building, make it year round so that we could have programs there. And that, of course, included having to upgrade those bathrooms. And then you had to get handicapped accessible, right? Because it is a 2-story building. And so it was incredibly expensive for what we would get out of it. But we really wanted to do it primarily because we didn't have any program space. So as we got program space, so I guess we basically said, all right, we can't spend $1 million on that, so we'll spend 16 million and we'll get program space. So we now have program space, but that building at some point not to be rented, or I don't know what the status is. I haven't been in it for years.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
scary.
and are the bathrooms usable? Do we use them in the summer for the programs?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was pretty scuzzy, and this was probably 10 years ago.
So, and I don't know, like, it's not that we could always use more program space. There's, and while we have program space at the RC, we don't have anything where we can play a dodgeball game or a basketball game or anything with anything that's aerial of any kind. So maybe that's a thought for the future. Maybe that building gets bumped yet again. I don't know, but I do know that is going to be a building project with building, water, sewer.
Right.
It's going to be a whole thing.
Right.
And because of the RC, I don't see the need for the turnaround thing, but I do see a very specific need to make it accessible because it is not accessible. And that playground, same thing. It's not like the playground itself, not just the wood fibers, but to just get into it because it's elevated.
Right.
So I think it is sort of like a big picture renovation. And I don't know where we want it necessarily. I think I felt a little bad bumping it out too much, but
I'm not sure that I would still be behind a project to do something to that building. Maybe we don't need that building. I don't know. I mean, I was just speaking as one commissioner. We don't need that. We could always use more program space. I agree with you. I couldn't in good conscience go to the town now and ask for a major building project when they invested in our Rosemary Recreation Complex. But the other commissioners may feel differently about that.
No, I agree with you, Cindy, but I also feel that at some point, if we don't do something at that spot, we're gonna have to pay to tear it down, which could be
Correct.
equal to at least half the cost of what we're asking. So I do agree with you. I would be very hesitant to go fix that building. I'm sure there's fire safety in that turnaround as well as dropping kids off. That might be an issue too.
Yeah.
I would be very hesitant, but we probably still need to leave some dollar amount on there in the
Right.
event that, hey, we're not going to do something and it does have to come down because it.
Well, I think we
because-
have to, I think we really do have to weigh, sorry, I jumped in before you, Chris. Would you
No,
like to
go ahead.
We
No,
do have
go
to
ahead.
weigh in the septic system because we can't keep using the bathrooms with it's already failed.
Okay.
And whether that means it has to be replaced or we have to tie into town sewer.
Okay.
Both
Well,
of those are very large dollar numbers. And I don't want to wait too long because if septic overflows and ruins that field, Eddie will have my head. And
Right.
so we do need to keep we have to make a plan for what are we going to do with the bathrooms. And like I said, if we do anything with the bathrooms, the next floor is just whether it's storage space or just a big empty room, because we still use it for storage, as does DPW. And if that's
Right.
all it is, that's what that can be it. But we do have to fix the bathrooms.
right. Okay. Michelle or Chris? Chris.
I'm going to go the other side of the coin here. Isn't the Cricketeer program one of our largest programs that we do in a normal time? That if we don't have a building there to kind of run that program, isn't a lot of that storage space for some of our programming stuff? I'm not saying build a $2 million building, but I don't want to lose a program just because we don't want to invest in something that we've been doing for years on a field like that.
I agree. I think frankly, like a modular type building
Sure.
there with like a big open room and some storage space and some bathrooms that are up to code is really probably enough.
If we ran into also the guidelines that we did this year for COVID, is that we couldn't use that building in case it started to rain, we couldn't use that just because it was so small. So it could be a safety issue on if you do need to bring the kids in, you wouldn't have any place to put them. So I'm looking at it at the other angle. I'm not saying we don't want it. Like I said, I don't want to give up a program for that just because we don't want to do a building there or something there.
I believe, and Kristen, you can weigh in. I believe it is one of our larger money makers.
It is. We would lose approximately $50,000 in revenue if we had to discontinue the Cricketeer program.
What was that number again?
Estimated with any increases, we had about, I want to say it was 36 or 38, and we probably would have made 45 this year. So next year, if the program increases and we can have more kids or we have to increase the price or whatever, it's 50-ish thousand in revenue that we put back into the general fund every year.
Kim Parsons is on point. She just texted me because she's watching it. What about Cricketeer? So
Thank
you,
you.
Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
So good point. I will say when we had a cost estimate done, it was $1 million and we just couldn't believe it. So we put it aside, but maybe times have changed and our requirements may be different. So any other comments on the capital improvement plan? Okay, well, I don't know if we helped you, Stacy, but we thought of a few things.
There's a couple,
It should
and
be
like
added.
if you guys think of anything like I do in the middle of the night, wake it up and jot it down on the side.
Well,
On the
I just looked
nightstand.
at
You can
that.
always email it to me. Just don't email it to everybody.
Yeah. I just looked at that Rosemary report briefly, and there are some things in there that I think would fit into a capital project.
Okay.
So placeholders.
Take a
in
look
here.
at it. Definitely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. This
All right.
computer thing is killing me.
Now on to the rest of the story.
Okay,
Rail,
so these should go pretty quick. We have our first meeting of the rail. I have my first meeting of the rail trail committee this Thursday. It's not your first, I hope. So we're gonna meet with the consultants, members of the public that are part of this. We're gonna talk about the items that have been going on. One of the additions to the list that we're gonna talk about is the graffiti art wall that we are partnering with town management and youth and family services to work on a design to paint the fence that is closest to the bridge that the kids jump off of, that they shouldn't be jumping off of. It gets graffitied often. So we are working with an artist in town that is friends with Youth Family Services. She's coming up with a design where kids will be able to spray paint their own art, or there are going to be some sections because the fence is broken into sections where we'll tape it off and kids could paint actual paint as opposed to spray painting, because that takes a lot more skill than you think it does. I'm horrible at it. So we're going to work on some areas of like making that fence look nice and giving kids a space where we want them to purposefully paint. So it will hopefully stay contained. And we are working with Youth and Family Services, so they are going to work with the youth to get the youth to come out, so that they'll have some ownership and some pride in it. And if it works well there, then we're going to start looking at other areas like the tunnel between DeFazio and Pollard, and some other spaces that get typically tagged in town.
Okay.
So I've looked at the designs; they look pretty cool. So.
okay.
No updates on the OSRP. I am gathering the information and just haven't had a chance to look at it. I am at a virtual conference for the next 3 days, and then that is pretty high on my to-do list.
What's the virtual conference about?
It's the National Rec and Park Association Conference. It was supposed to be in Orlando this year, so it's the biggest conference for our industry. It is pretty amazing. Kristen and I will both be attending, and I have like triple booked myself for like all day. Thankfully, we get the sessions on demand after the end of the week, which will be great because then I can go back. One of the nice things about the virtual conferences is now I can share some of them once they're on demand, because then I can share them with the staff. So there's like an esports program that I load that we may have to get into, but I think Chris would really be interested in it. So once that's on demand, I'll have him watch it and get some information on. But I think Kristen and I are most likely going to be on different tracks, and that just sort of brings more back to the department.
So Stacy, let me know
Okay.
if you need to delve into that esports arena. There is I know I have the same loathing, but one of our townspeople's son is on the newly formed Northeastern Varsity Esports Division I team. So it's actually a Division I college sport. And so I'm sure if you were to put a program together, he would be more than excited to help get it off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'm like, our whole charge is to get people moving and active, but I also understand that it is a thing, it's not going away. And in times of COVID, it's probably super helpful. So we are gonna start to dip our toe into that. So that's one of the ideas. Some of our, and the next on the list, oh, sorry, Cindy, I'm just.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
New program ideas there's a town out in the middle Midwest that's doing a senior walking program. I talked to Tim about it, and it's basically just like meeting like with groups of seniors at any like trailhead and just walking, or even just like downtown walking, just getting them out and moving and feeling like they have things to do. So we're gonna start to look into that.
And you would coordinate that with the Center at the Heights?
Yes, certainly. And I even said to Tim, like, or if you guys want to run it, like you guys run it, but just so that we can get them moving, because the calf is still gonna be closed. I don't see it opening anytime soon, certainly not in the winter months.
Are they programs? The calf running any
Virtual,
virtual stuff? Okay.
but all free, so.
Okay.
Daisy, can I make, oh, sorry, Madam Chair, may I speak?
All right, can I just
Commissioner
hop in
Gerst-
for 1 second?
Yes.
I'm on the Diversity, Inclusion, and Equitable Commission, and one of my charges from town managers to really work that in. So if we could use chairperson or commissioner, that would be preferable.
Commissioner Chaston, may I make a suggestion, please?
That would be chair, Commissioner.
Chair.
You. Yes, but
Oh,
yes,
so-
but since you're vice, yes, go right ahead, Commissioner Gerstle.
I know that we have talked about pickleball, and this is something that they even have live events for, is I would love to explore what we could possibly do about maybe cornhole. Because there are a few groups in town that do tournaments, and it's standing room only, which I know you don't want to hear during COVID times, but it's a packed house wherever they do it. I think if it's something that we could do as a town, I think we could get a lot of interest. Is that it right there?
No,
Oh, I thought you were trying to show me like that's your cornhole board.
I'm just not trying not to get Zoom bombed, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. My kids play it with their friends, at least they used to all the time. For my daughter's wedding, she made one, and her new husband made one with the logo of their colleges on. Of course, he went to New England College, so it was his at NEC. She went to Miami, so she painted the whole ibis, and I mean, she spent, I think she said 22 hours on it. But anyway, it was a big hit at the Friday night before the wedding. They were all out there playing cornhole. So it's a big deal. But I do know it is competitive. So yeah, I think it's a great idea for us to.
Very little upfront cost. I mean, a lot of people have their own boards and have their own bags. We just need to supply an area that they can play on.
We already have them, and yes, I agree, cornhole is a big hit. In fact, I've been looking into, as we look into park improvements and playground improvements, the cement permanent cornhole boards are being put into certain areas. Not in Needham, but around, so that you can just, if you have your own bags, you can just go play at a park.
Okay.
Like permanent
But let's also
chessboards.
let's not forget about our skate park equipment either.
We won't.
Okay. All right.
Tennis courts and basketball courts. I have reached out to a few vendors. I've got actually this morning I got quotes for all of the different facilities. I have not opened them because I was like blinders, just get the budget done. But we did get some, so we got some very early budget numbers on how much it is to redo a playground, how much it is to redo our, like all 4 tennis courts. So we can start looking into some of those items.
Okay, great.
I've only heard back from one vendor so far. One vendor was like, "Oh, we don't work with towns." I was like, "Oh, okay, bye-bye." Who can blame them? Halloween event went great, no issues whatsoever, except that one little one.
After the first 45 minutes.
It was just like, I mean, every cop, like all the cops showed up, fire department. I was like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Hi, I'm the new Park and Rec director. Like, I've never met you before."
That's how we roll and need them. If you
Yeah.
call one little thing, every piece of equipment
Yeah.
shows. Once I
And I
called
had
it,
like, my first tourniquet was like the tablecloth that was made out of plastic, because that's what I had. And he was like, "This is a pretty good job." I was like, "Thanks. I'm so sorry."
it was a nice way for you to meet them. I once called for something minor with my grill and said to the person on the phone, "Please don't send the fire trucks. Please, please." And he said, "Oh, you're
Yeah,
getting the
it's
fire
protocol.
truck."
I knew it was coming. I knew.
Yeah. So, but they're nice, and when you need
They're
them,
great.
they're great.
So that was that 1775 walk. People are just like crazy excited about this thing. I have prepared them as much as humanly possible. It's been paired. We had our first meeting last week. We've pared it way down. And we have talked at length about whether or not it may get postponed again. So, but we are going to meet about once a month, just to talk about the logistics of it.
Okay.
And that's it for my. Cindy, I'll let you take back over. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, thank
You
you,
are.
Stacy. Stacy, let me take
I'm like,
for the working. Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions for our director before we move on to the action items? Okay. So we have, I believe, 2 special event requests. One is from the Elliott PTC. It was in the package that Kristen sent out to us on Friday. It is bingo in the Elliott parking lot. Has everyone had a chance to look at it? And are there any questions? And I'll ask the staff if you have any concerns about it. Commissioner Tulin.
Two questions. I remember last meeting we were talking about PTC events and us, and so if the staff could give us an update as to that status, and then assuming that, are there even 100 parking spots at Elliott School? Because that looks a little bit more than I've ever seen in that parking lot, but maybe I'm miscounting.
So I can jump on the first one. I talked to Tim. He has not heard from Dan Gutenkantz, who was the one saying that he would like to pull back on the PTCs. So we are moving forward, and if the permits come in, my first go is Tim, and then if Tim and I agree that it's safe and manageable, then it comes to you until we hear more from Dan, if anything. And then Elliott, I'm trying to look at it while I'm.
I guess my other question is, and this may sound crazy, but it's also going to impact the next one. Are we expecting people to have their cars running during this time? I mean, to me, that just seems like a very unenvironmentally friendly activity. And if given the dates and the times, I can hardly imagine that people won't have their cars running, but do we really want to foster something that is, you know,
So for
contra?
the drive-in, when I talked to the PTC, I did say that they actually needed to turn their cars on at least 2 times during the movie if they're going to use the FM transmitter, because otherwise your battery dies if you have your radio on the whole time and don't turn your car on. But we did talk about at length that they shouldn't be having it running the entire time. Regardless, I mean, if it's really that cold, then they should cancel. But if they're turning it on, they're supposed to turn it on, leave it on for 5 minutes, and then turn it off so it charges your battery. We know that from experience when we held ours.
Okay. Any other questions?
And Elliot, is it 100 people or 100 cars? I read it as people or
They have
participants.
100 vehicles.
100
vehicles.
Yep, estimated number of vehicles, 100.
Number at peak time, 100, running 2 rounds.
Yep. I mean, that does seem like a small parking lot, especially since are they parking, what do they say, every other space or something?
Yeah,
Cars
that's
will be parked in alternating spaces in Elliott lot. Yeah, I can't imagine
there's
100.
no way there's 100 spots there.
No.
Well, and if it would be an L shaped, so there'd be nowhere to like facilitate it where all cars would hear the numbers. right? There's sort of the front
Yeah.
parking area as well as the side. So
Side, right. It's a
Yeah.
big-
Yes.
that's small. It's
this may be a big assumption, but it's the Elliott PTC, so they must know the facility, right? I mean, this is their school, but I agree with you, that's not conducive to how I would
They-
picture it.
Could they be assuming that there are going to be multiple kids of the same family in the car? So, I mean, you got
Let's say
maybe
number of vehicles, but
Let's say 100 vehicles, though.
It
That
says
means-
100 vehicles, Chris, so yeah. I agree.
but that's 2 time slots.
it's 100.
Says number at peak time is 100.
Yeah, it is a little confusing.
Well, do we have a problem with it? I mean, we don't understand logistics. Do we need to understand those logistics for them to do this? As long as we're confident that what they're doing is safe, which I don't know if we're confident in that, but we can send it back for more questions or more answers, I'd rather.
Well, they want to do it in a week.
Yeah, week from the Saturday.
Oh, it is a week from this Saturday, November 7th.
And it's already been advertised pretty much.
Oh,
Oh, heck,
Oh,
I didn't
really?
who would have
Oh, then
thunk?
I refuse it on
seen
that
it.
grounds.
Socialized and shared with friends. So
That is not the first time that happens.
no,
no.
So need to
no.
advertise their drive-in too.
right.
You know, I mean, the soccer tournament, oh, they used to advertise everything before we even knew the dates, right? So, yeah, happened to us a lot. Does it mean like,
I have it on Google Authority that there's about 80 spots at Elliott.
80? So if they're using every other spot, does that mean there's only
Somewhere
40?
between 70 and 80, my staff can't agree.
Okay.
I mean, Google.
Google.
And but that would mean 40 cars.
Every other, yep.
But it's also the way Elliott works is that there's the side lot and then there's the front. So it's like, there's no way you could yell numbers and have both parking areas hear you. They're
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern too, is the standard volume microphone for announcing bingo numbers.
Well, we
But
can say
yeah.
we cannot advance this if that's how we feel. Hopefully they haven't spent too much time and energy on the advertising.
No, I mean, it is during the day. So in terms of noise, I'd be less concerned with the noise issue. It's more that it's not, I don't think people from COVID protocols, they're not going to be able to remain in their cars in order to hear what's happening. So I think, I mean, my opinion would be as long as they're adhering to COVID protocols, I would be comfortable and maintaining the distance between the cars, which would maybe only allow for 40. It seems like they could work within those guidelines.
I would also ask the director to follow up on traffic flow because that is a dangerous parking lot and they may, if they're gonna unload and if they're gonna have 50 people coming in, I mean, there's no gap between the sessions.
There's a half an hour break.
Oh, there's a half-hour gap. Okay, well, that helps. But,
2 and 2:30 to 3:30.
but still getting out of that location with even 40 cars all at once,
Yeah.
they may need some traffic assistance. Right?
Haven't we have approved permits like this under conditions of a little bit more explanation? So, and we could leave it up to the discretion of the director and the staff with the questions that we have to come back, that if it, passes the muster, then great. But if it doesn't, we'll leave it up to the director to say if, a yay or nay. I mean, no
agree.
problem. And I'll make that motion, to do that if we all agree that's something we could go with.
Sure, we have done that before. Absolutely. If the director says I'm willing to take that responsibility and I'm willing to get these questions answered, and if they're answered to my satisfaction, then go ahead. Absolutely. every faith in our director and her staff to figure this out.
I'm willing.
Okay. All right. Would you like me to make a motion?
Yes, I would.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Elliott bingo night or bingo day for Saturday, November 7th, contingent on follow-up questions that the Park and Rec Commission has to be answered by the PTC, and if approved and if valid, the director has the right to approve or not approve the permit. Make sense?
Yes.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Um,
Hearing none, we'll come.
One
I'm
one
sorry.
last question. Sorry,
That's
they're
okay.
charging a fee. This isn't our land, right?
No, it's not a field.
Okay.
School.
Just making sure. So that'll be an issue on the next one.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I believe we've had all the discussion, so let's come to the vote. Commissioner Gerstle,
Aye.
Commissioner Tulin,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes,
Aye.
and the chair is also an aye, passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Okay. The next special event request is from the Williams School PTC for a drive-in movie. At the Fazio parking lot, November 15th. Charging $20 a car. They're estimating 100 cars or 400 people. Any questions or any concerns from the staff before we get to the commissioners? No.
There's no way that they can get 100 cars in there, and I've spoken with the PTC. I may not have just updated that form. As you can see, my edits are on there because they handed in the paper form.
Yeah.
But I will certainly follow, if approved, I will certainly follow up with them about the number of cars, because best case scenario, I think Kristen and I figured out like 60.
Okay.
So, and that is best case safety scenario. So it can't possibly go more than that.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Tulin, you had a question?
Yeah, when do we turn off the bathrooms?
It's a great question. It depends on who at DPW ask, but currently they are still open.
but this
When I
is
talked to
November
building and
15th.
maintenance, he felt like the director of building and maintenance, or I think that's his title.
Mm-hmm.
He said that they could keep them open that late. Somebody else from DPW said we usually start them already. They haven't started anywhere yet, and they keep telling me that they usually do it mid-October. So,
No, don't they wait till soccer season is over?
you can't technically wait until our soccer season's really over, or football season for that matter, because if the building
Cold.
isn't winterized, it's too cold.
Right.
Looking at the weather, it doesn't appear that it's going to go below freezing, but if we have to shut them down, they will have to get a porta potty. And for
Okay.
that number of people, they would probably have to get two.
Are they aware of that,
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
They are, okay. Other questions? Commissioner Geddes, did you have a question?
Are there plans to fill in the parking lot at Tefazio?
Yes.
Because it is treacherous.
Once they remove the barriers on the 16th, then the plan is to regrade the parking lot.
The 16th of November?
That's when the barriers come out.
But isn't this,
We could probably,
The-
yeah, this is the
it's just,
16th.
I mean, there's some pretty big holes and dips in that parking lot, especially, I can't imagine driving in it at night.
No, it is really bad.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I mean, I haven't been down there, so I didn't think they were that bad, but I can talk to Karis and see if we can push that up. It is more difficult to do it with the barriers in than with the barriers out, and we can't take the barriers out until the season is over.
Right. Well, that could
Those
be an
always
issue.
get bad. It just,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
always get bad every year. I mean, more people bottom out in those things.
Well, there's
Oh,
also
yeah.
people parking on, is it George Agate Road, like to drop kids off and having them cross over the street there because it's like, yeah, you could definitely damage your car if you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle.
Oh, yeah. I'm not, yeah, I am very cautious when I go over there. I would never drive there at night. Are you seeing people on George Agate? Because that's a separate problem that we need to maybe be on the lookout for.
I'm seeing a lot of that mainly because of the South Street detour.
Oh, my, yeah.
So no one wants to go down that way because then they're gonna have to turn around. And then there's people, I've asked people because they've walked in and I'm like, why aren't you pulling in the parking lot? They're like, oh, it's just so difficult on the car that I'm not gonna pull in the driveway. I'm gonna
Oh, so they got to cross Dedham Ave because that's so safe.
push their children across Dedham Ave. That's better.
Oh, what are they thinking? Yeah.
But I
Well,
think a lot of that, it has been the detour issues mainly.
oh yes, I actually can't get out of my neighborhood some days.
Yes.
I'm captive, and they work on Saturdays, so I am captive 6 days a week. I'm best with the cops at the top of the hill. So we have some questions on this one, I guess. So it's number of cars, people that they're expecting, as well as if the barriers are still in, that will be difficult for them to do this, right?
Yeah.
And the other question is the restrooms, right?
Yep. I have
And then
those.
would we
noted.
waive our fee for the use of would we waive any fee that so they're charging $20 per car. I'm assuming that's just to cover their cost. But typically, I mean, I guess DeFazio the parking lot is technically school land.
I don't remember that map. Is it the school's property? It might be.
It might be.
No,
So
we have the whole thing.
They've already paid us for the event.
They have?
Mhm.
That's why they're advertising it.
Yeah, is the whole thing ours? Did we do it? No, we didn't do a trade for that, did we, Chris?
We did because correct me if I'm wrong, the select board had the tot lot because they wanted to hold that as a possible school. So then what happened is we secured all of DeFazio and we got greens. So the select board
Got
then
green.
took Ridge Hill, because didn't we have a little stake in Ridge Hill years ago? Okay.
No,
Well-
no, we did not have.
I know when we did the land swap a few years ago, we got everything at DeFazio.
I'd have to look. I
don't
don't
remember,
remember that, but we did.
I trust you.
Yeah, and 3 of us are on the commission when that happened. Kristen, do you remember? Kristen, were you here?
As I was here, and that was one of my very first town meetings. And I remember that discussion of land swap taking approximately 2.5 hours. I feel like it took up more than half of one of the nights of town meeting. I believe this means me that Mr. Grosso is correct, but I can pull up a warrant.
And parcel
Yeah,
74 was the one that didn't get that's where he might be right, because people were expecting parcel 74 to get reallocated. And that was the one thing that got voted down, that people were like, we're not giving up our green space.
Right. Yes, I think that was the piece that was controversial. The piece that was coming to Park and Rec was not controversial. Okay, so what do we want to do with this PTC drive-in movie?
I make a motion that we approve the PTC drive-in movie pending any open questions to be handled by our esteemed director and staff.
Second.
Is that sufficient for you, Stacy and Kristen, to go forward and ask? Do you need anything more detailed than that in our motion?
You should probably recommend the fee of $125.
And
Okay.
that they pay the recommended fee of $125 for the use of the field. And they will be made aware of the fact that bathrooms may or may not be open at that time. And if they are not, they will be responsible for providing their own porta potties.
Still second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we come to the vote. Commissioner Gerstle,
Aye.
Commissioner Tulin,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes.
Aye.
The chair is also an aye, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. Those were easy. Easy. Okay. Now we are on, excuse me?
Sorry.
Minutes. Yes, minutes. Thank you, Stacy. So glad that you remind minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of August 10th.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, corrections, additions to those minutes?
Apologize, if there were
No.
not more budgets. And that's all.
Apologize.
I can
Oh, please.
understand, not even asking that question, Kristen, so thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote on this. Commissioner Gerstle,
I will abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Commissioner Tulin,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes,
Aye.
and the chair is also an aye, so it passes with 3 ayes and 1 abstention. Thank you. Next, we have upcoming commission meetings. We pushed this item forward. I guess we were going to talk about whether or not people would want to meet Monday, the 23rd, I believe, right? Was that Thanksgiving week? Is that, can you meet that week, not meet that week?
I will likely have a conflict, but if you have a quorum, I would say move on.
I'll be
Okay.
available.
I'll be there.
Okay, I will be here also. We're not traveling at all. So, okay, so why don't we leave that on as a meeting date? Is that okay with the staff? You guys available? Most likely? Okay. All right. Stacy, I have a couple things. In the future, I'm going to say it now because I'll forget. We used to have an item on our agenda that said topics for future meetings. And I would like to add, okay, so that we can talk about, so if someone has something that they want to talk about at the next meeting, we can put it here. So, and then under that, I have a couple things. I would like to talk about commission goals, not tonight, but I did send the goals out to you folks. Hopefully you looked at them and studied them and, wrote new ones. But maybe we can talk about that next time. We should do goals in the fall. The Board of Selectmen or Select Board will be doing their goals sometime soon, and we should have our goals updated. And I think the last time we did it was 2 years ago. That's all the latest I could find. I don't know if any commissioner has anything more recent, but I think, Chris, that was the last time that we worked on them. Is that your recollection?
That would be my recollection, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and we were so overwhelmed with the pool last year that we didn't do anything. Another item that I would like to have for next time would be talking about camps versus programs. I know that I think is a little bit of a very interesting topic for us, but not for tonight, clearly. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any topics for future agenda or any items that were not reasonably anticipated by the chair? Yes.
Just one, after we get our goals, straightened out and what we're going to be looking for, is it worth setting up another one of those chairs meetings with the select board, just so we can kind of be like, these are the items we're looking to work on for 2021 and so on, just so we're kind of, checking in periodically with them to kind of be all on the same page?
Sure.
Or see if we have any similarities.
Right. Yep, that's a great idea. I don't know when they'll be doing their goals. I think they do them early in the calendar year, but I'm not sure. And this year has been so crazy. But yeah, that's a great idea. Anything else? No. Well, then I think we've come to that part of the meeting where I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No. Let's vote. Commissioner Gerstle,
Aye.
Commissioner Tulin,
Aye.
Commissioner Geddes.
Aye.
Chair is also an aye, so the passage unanimously, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time. Sorry we went so late. This is later. Stacy, were you waving goodbye or you just had something to say?
Waving.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.